Good evening, everyone. Tonight, let's talk about courage. Seems like everyone celebrates courage. It's even one of the 4 foundational pillars of our school. But courage, actually, when you think about it, is counterintuitive. And often, it's painful. Why would we ever choose it? Or why did this kid named Bridger Walker choose it? Let me tell you a story. So 5 years ago, a vicious dog was about to pounce on Bridger's younger sister, Brielle. He was faced with a terrifying decision. Should he put his sister's well-being above his own? Looking from afar, we hope it's an easy decision. But in reality, Bridger would need huge amounts of courage. Bridger chose courage and stepped in his sister's place and let the razor-sharp teeth of that vicious dog pierce his tender flesh, leaving him bloody and half dead. Pretty courageous for a 6-year-old. But that courageous choice was painful. That courageous choice went against his natural intuition to self-preserve. So again, I ask, why did he choose courage? He chose courage because he loved his sister more than himself. In his own words, he said, quote, "I thought in the moment that if one of us should die, it should be me." Shakespeare was fascinated by moments of courage like this and talked about courage all throughout his writings. He wrote from the perspective of Julius Caesar in his play, Julius Caesar, that cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. But Shakespeare got it wrong. Though he is right in some of what he wrote, because yes, the courageous must die, in my opinion, and honestly, through the lens of what God has shown us to be true through his example, people like Bridger Walker illustrate that courage is not tasting death once, but actually, courage is the practice of continually dying to oneself. So when I'm talking about death, I'm not referring to a body in a grave. What I'm talking about is dying to our selfish will, or in other words, martyrdom. Now stick with me. If you're thinking that martyrs are just those who are murdered for their beliefs, I would challenge us to broaden the definition. Married couples, I've been told, have to die to themselves repeatedly by biting their tongue and doing undesirable tasks every day for their spouse and their marriage. What about friends? As in those ride or die people in our lives that always put our needs first, whether it's giving us their lunch when we forgot ours, or even those who would give a kidney if we needed it. That's martyrdom. And remember what St. Dionysius the Great said, that for one example, those who care for the sick without thinking about themselves are martyrs. So yes, those crucified for their beliefs are martyrs, but those who crucify their wants and passions, such as monastics, are as well. And actually, this is known as white martyrdom. And here's the kicker. We are all invited to be martyrs. But how do these people become so selfless, willing to die a courageous death on behalf of another? Are some people just born with it? It's not innate. It's not genetics. It's not like God sprinkled some extra Holy Spirit on them at birth. We become courageous by practice. A truly virtuous man acts virtuous habitually. 20th century philosopher Will Durant summarized Aristotle by saying, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, it's a habit." The courageous sacrifice themselves for others and are martyred continually. And that's how courage is created. Christ mentions this when he says, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." The truly courageous are not those who die once, as Shakespeare put it, but rather daily, as Christ put it. But look at these selfless decisions as what they really are. They are painful and undesirable and sacrificial. I don't want to give someone my food when they're hungry if I'm hungry too. I still argue with my sister about who gets to pick music in the car or gets to use the TV remote. And parents, you know this better than anyone. Okay, for example, how many of you have been woken up by a crying baby in the middle of the night? How many of you wanted to kick your spouse and roll over under the covers and let them deal with it so that you could get some well-deserved sleep? Okay, now think back to that moment. How many of you ignored what you wanted and got out of bed and helped your child, letting them sleep, essentially dying to what you wanted? That's martyrdom. Or how about this one? How many of us want to dominate in everything? As in, we want the best grades and we want to go to the best college or have the highest paycheck, and we constantly work to self-promote and be number one in every single thing. I'm sure many of us have felt this. It is part of human nature. But there is so much more courage and joy and love in putting all your effort into how you can better your knowledge, not so that you can be valedictorian, but so that you can serve. In choosing the correct college for yourself and for your family, rather than choosing an ill-suited Ivy. In working hard for your paycheck so that you can better your family, rather than to look cool with your friends. Choosing the wise, selfless decision that the martyrs chose brings more joy than choosing the rash, selfish decision. And what do we want more than joy? So how can we start to live a life of true courage? Follow the example of Saul of Tarsus, also known as St. Paul, who had it all. He was rich, high in society, loved by many, but he chose to stop using all his gifts for himself. He chose to start using all his gifts for God, and because of this, he began to live the rest of his life with joy and real impact. So I implore you to strive to be courageous, trying constantly to put another's wants and needs over your own. Maybe it looks like biting your tongue when you know you're right. Maybe it's deciding to stay in state for college if that's what's best, even if you want to leave. You discern what it looks like. Will you be perfect? No, but perfection isn't the goal. The goal is to be like Christ, and that's why we choose courage. But unlike Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, we don't call it quits after one swing. We get up to bat over and over and over again so that martyrdom becomes a habit and so that we may live the truly courageous life. Thank you.